large, and it contains multitudes, but it also contains me.
Tom, Mike, how are y'all doing?
How are you, Jacqueline?
Nice to see you, Jacqueline.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start with you, Mike, sir, because as I was talking to the other actors, all of them mentioned how you told them kind of a story about what this particular piece of work meant to you before they signed on. So I'd be curious if you could maybe give us a little bit of that, because they all said they pretty much signed up after you stopped talking.
Damn. I think what I said to just about everybody, because this was what animated me to really want to make the film. I read this story in April 2020 when it felt like the world was shutting down. It was, just barely into the pandemic lockdown. And it was at a time when there was so much uncertainty, and I was so scared, frankly, about what would happen. By the end of the story, I felt hopeful and joyful and appreciative and grateful for the specifics of my little life. And I wanted to make this movie because I wanted it to exist in the world for my kids, who I know are going to come up against that same feeling of fear and uncertainty that I felt. And they're going to come up against things I can't even imagine for them. And this was a little piece of comfort and of wisdom that I wanted them to have at their fingertips, and to understand that the world could also be like this, and that our darkest times don't define us. It's the moments we give ourselves over to joy that do, and they're that for me. So that's what it is for me. Yeah.
And then for you, Tom, I know you had to do a lot of gymnastics to get yourself involved in this one. I'm curious for you signing on to it. What was the part of playing this role that you found to be the most satisfying?
Honestly, it was that first reading of the script, which I'll never forget, and our first conversation, which I'll also never forget, which is that I understood what Mike was trying to say, and I understood what the story by Stephen King, the great insight, which is that life for all of us, in our experience, is full of struggle and pain and suffering and loss and grief. That's true. But it's also full of joy and magic. And that all of our lives contain so many moments of joy that sometimes it just takes reframing one's perspective to see it. And that really is the stuff of life. It's the business of living, is that the small moments aren't small. They'll end up being the big moments in our memories as we look back in the last hours of our lives. That the sum of our lives are the connections we made, the love we shared, the experiences we created with other people. And that's what life's about. Life is about connecting, making connections, making hopefully connections through love and compassion and joy. Life will also hit you with the other stuff, but
Yeah.
but this for me was what I wanted to be part of, was to be part of a piece of art that was a meditation on that theme. That all ordinary lives have magic in them.
I love that. They're wrapping me. I have to get out of here. Just real quick. The photo, how did you make that face? I have to know how you made that like perfect face.
We went through a range of different expression that could be, that could have a kind of, could take on a sinister quality at the end of the world, but it also was genuine and innocent. And as the story progresses, the expression actually changes, that his casual, relaxed smile actually starts to crease into something more, with more sadness and uncertainty, as the story starts to shift. But it was an amazing 30 minutes of time in front of the camera with Mike on our first day.
You fill the whole thing. It'll be a universe.
Chiwetel, I'm going to start with you. First of all, I just feel like if you get sent the script, you probably immediately maybe want to chat with the director because you don't even know what you're doing in it because there's so many different timelines. So talk a little bit about the pitch from Mike and what he told you about these two characters that we see throughout.
Yeah, no, I mean, I loved reading the script because I just felt like it had, that I felt it was very truthful, actually. I just felt like it had a real sort of honesty to it about, that connected to me, just sort of as a person. I just thought that this feels like the sort of slightly sort of more pragmatic way one handles an apocalypse, as opposed to the sort of pyrotechnics of an apocalypse. It's actually the sort of what is the business of the day. And I think for all of us having come out of the pandemic and having to face, especially in those early days, a lot of these kind of existential questions, when it was very unsure what direction things would take, it felt very truthful to that as well. It felt like it really touched on things that I felt I'd experienced. And so those first conversations with Mike were really about that, we're just about we talked in a sort of broad way about all of our experiences, our experiences to do with kind of existential thoughts and feelings in that last period, in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. And then it moved into a kind of philosophical sort of realm, and I engaged with both those aspects because I guess that tonality is very true from in the film.
Yeah, and Karen, I think we begin with you as well, but I don't know, that first section, it's its own little movie in my opinion. And y'all are going through this full like love in a hopeless place. It almost felt like that Steve Carell, Keira Knightley movie, Finding a Friend at the End of the World sort of thing.
I haven't
Then
seen
there's
that.
but then there's the second section, which to me, that would be even almost harder to then have to go play that. So how did you sort of reconcile the differences of these two stories, I guess, for your characters?
So I wasn't in the second section. I think
Yes, for a second with the dance.
Oh my God, you're right. I'm sorry.
Don't get me called out on this movie.
Wait, at the dance. Oh, the last section. Or
yeah, sorry, the last section. Sorry, yeah, second section for
When
y'all.
we
Sorry, not
appear-
second section in the movie. Second section for y'all. The other part that y'all are in.
okay, yeah. I thought you.
Sorry, I forget it is like 1, 2,
I'm glad
3.
we've cleared this up, by the way.
No. By the way,
I'm sorry. You know what? I'm very sleep deprived.
this is the movie you need to be very specific. So I should have been very specific. Third
you are
part of
fine.
the movie, when y'all sort of like pop in and it's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
this is maybe where they really are. I don't know. That
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. No, that you said it perfectly. I'm sleep deprived. So yeah, it was. I mean, the first part is obviously our like meteor chunk of story, and I just found it so beautiful. But it made me ask myself a lot of questions about like what it might feel like at the end of everything, and that conjured up a lot of different emotions. And then to revisit the characters in the later section, that was really cool because it's almost like, oh, I don't want to give anything away, but you sort of learn a little bit like, how do I say this without spoilers? That the first section is maybe an exploration into something that's not necessarily reality, maybe.
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it. They know it's Mike Flanagan. They know it's Stephen
They
King.
know
We
they're
don't need
primed for it.
Yeah, we don't need to.
There's stuff going on. Yeah.
There's stuff going on. Also, this is so weird seeing both of you very different MCU people in this movie. It's so crazy. Karen, I think it's interesting because you got to work with Mike on Oculus, and then now you're returning to him, and both of you have had so much success in the interim. What was that like for you stepping back on set with him? How much has he changed? How much is he the same?
It was so cool, sort of reuniting for this. It feels like the perfect film to reunite for as well. I mean, he was already so brilliant, and Oculus was one of his first films. It was so clear right off the bat that he was such a brilliant editor. I could see him editing the film as he was going. And then I was like, okay, what's it going to be like to revisit all these years later? And he's become, a bit of a legend in the horror genre. And I will say that it was pretty much the same. Like it didn't feel massively different.
Oh wow!
Well, no, he's got better clothes now. that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I mean,
oh, believe me, I was not looking my best back then.
I mean, let's be real. He also brings everyone back. The wife is back. Annalise is back. I mean, it honestly
Yeah.
probably feels more like deja vu. Um, I would say both of you have very intense monologues in this movie. Like you've got some pages, maybe. Chiwetel, you've got one for sure. Karen, I think there's more of like a desperate sort of like conversation that you're having. But how do you prepare for a Mike Flanagan, Stephen King monologue? Chiwetel, I'll start with you.
I think it was just for me, it was really important just to be very precise, you know.
Mm.
And sometimes when you're doing a monologue, I don't know if it's the same for you, but sometimes I can be quite sort of, I just sort of try and get the general gist of it, you know, and then filter in maybe how I would say things or just try to kind of put in a bit of sort of, you know, to allow it to feel just to have a naturalistic quality to it, you know, as you marry a character to your own personality. But this felt like there was just a rhythm to it and a precision to the writing that you felt like, you know, not that anybody had asked me to do that, but it just felt it was pushing you to want to be very, very precise, you know, down to a comma, down to, you know, and so that was how I decided to approach learning it, just to be right on it on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite Stephen King film or performance? I feel there's so many. I'm gonna add y'all's in this honestly as a top because y'all are too cute together. But
Thanks. I think for me, it's The Shining. Jack Nicholson. What a performance.
that's
Incredible.
fair. That's a good one. You can't say that one.
I would say the Shawshank Redemption was
And performance within it, is it Morgan Freeman? Is it Andy? What you got, Tim?
Tim. Yeah, I would say Tim Robbins. Yeah.
But if you have heart, you have hope. And you have heart in you.
I want to start with you, Mark, sir. I feel that, you know, Mike Flanagan has really sort of set this up with all of his actors where he really creates these like theater troupes. And he already had pitched you before and you're joining it again. But what was the pitch for this one? And what did he tell you about it before signing on?
Well, I first met him. He came with Trevor Macy to my house to pitch The Fall of the House of Usher. Now, I'd been a fan of his. I'd seen 4 of his miniseries and was dying to work with him. I didn't know what to make of the script, and I thought, this is interesting because this kind of role would have been routine for me in voiceover. Because in voiceover, they don't care about how you look, only how you sound. They cast with their ears, not their eyes. So, but I never get offered offbeat characters like that on camera. So he was really thinking outside the box. And I just had the greatest time working with him. He's so even keeled. He's a genuinely nice person. I've never seen him raise his voice. I've never seen him lose his temper, which is fair game. I mean, director have a very stressful job, and I've been on shoots with hollerers. But the atmosphere on set is just like a family. You're all together, you're all working towards a single goal, and it's the perfect atmosphere to create, I think. With The Life of Chuck, he contacted me and said, I'm going to do this adaptation of a Stephen King. I thought, oh boy, you know, these two titans of horror, this is going to, you know, be the supernatural mind bender of all time. So I was totally unprepared for how atypical it is for both of them, for Stephen King and for Mike Flanagan. And I loved it. I just thought it was so clever. Even the reverse storytelling where you start out with the conclusion and then work backwards is amazing. And every time I've seen it, I've only seen it twice, to tell you the truth. I'm going to see it again in a couple of days, but you've always discovered something new every time you see it. It's so layered, but I really think it's a film of its time in the sense that we need something that's uplifting and reaffirms life and shows you how to treasure even the smallest moment is much more important than you think at the time. And I think we need that now, hopefully.
I don't disagree. I mean, there's a reason why it won the audience award. I think everybody is really sort of like trying to find that hopefulness that the film gives. Benjamin, for you, I'm sure this is great. You get to act alongside Loki and Luke Skywalker and a Mike Flanagan feature, but you also have to dance and do a lot. So, what was the most daunting thing when you signed on that was a part of this performance?
I completely underestimated the amount of energy that I would need to shoot the dance sequence. I didn't realize that it was going to take 3 days to film. I thought maybe we were just going to do it a couple times in one day and run it through and we would be done. It was 3 gruesome days that were fun, and I had so much fun with everyone, but my feet hurt, and there's a lot of things that go into it when you're doing an all day of filming the scene like that. But Mike was there. He was a great guide throughout that.
I had to visit one day because I wanted to see you dance.
Did you come?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I stood on the side because I didn't want to break your focus, but yeah. And then Samantha Sloyan, who I worked with in House of Usher, she's wonderful. You're right. He has this. When I first saw The Haunting of Hill House, aside from, I guess, and Bly Manor and Midnight Mass, the only actor I recognized was Henry Thomas because he was a little boy in E.T. and he grew up and he's a wonderful actor. But I said, where do they find Tania Miller, Samantha Sloyan, Carla Gugino, Matt Blydell? There are so many wonderful actors in his productions, and they're all big ensembles. And there's nothing more satisfying than playing a supporting but significant role amongst all of these other wonderful people because they up your game. And Life of Chuck is no exception.
Let's be real. You're in 2 Stephen King adaptations this year, and I just have to push that out between this and The Long Walk. And your character in The Long Walk is so different, I know, from the book. Can you preview a little bit what that was like? And have you spoken to Stephen? Is he like your guy or just like happenstance that you ended up being in both of these?
The only time I spoke to him is they sat me next to him at TIFF at the Toronto Film Festival. And inside, I'm freaking out like a fanboy. But being an actor, I was acting calm because, and the first thing he said to me when he looked up, he goes, "The Major." I'm thinking, how does he know? Turns out he has casting approval, script, he has approval over everything because of some early experiences that were unpleasant for him. Now that's a requisite of being able to do an adaptation of his. And The Long Walk, unlike The Life of Chuck, is in his wheelhouse. It's not supernatural, but the premise is ghastly. In fact, I could almost not get past the premise of it, thinking, because I'm a wimp. I don't like to see Saw or any of the stabby movies, you know. Well, my daughter and I binged the Scream movies, but those are more like comedies. I mean,
It's tag.
I'm not a slasher movie guy, but the characters in The Long Walk, I'm the nominal antagonist, but the heart and soul of the movie belongs to these 20-something young men. And you know, since I wasn't always around when they were doing their scenes, to see the movie was a revelation to me because they own it. It's their film, and I'm just along to antagonize them periodically throughout the movie.
Well, you do a great job of it, I'm sure. I can't wait to watch it.
When you look up at the night sky, it can tell you stuff about your future. It won't lie to you.
First of all, I have to talk about really working on this film and working with Mike. I feel it's a part of this recent resurgence of stuff that you've done together. But what's it like working with Mike as a filmmaker and a writer?
It's a gift because we're friends. I think we share like a lot of common sort of geekdoms. I think we're very similar in terms of how we approach the work. We work hard. We believe in building like, sort of good relationships around this job that can be crazy at times. But yeah, become a good buddy of mine. So being a part of this movie on that journey with him is a privilege.
I love that. And I would say that there's a lot of people joining you in that privilege. I mean, Karen and Chiwetel, like obviously Mark Hamill and Tom Hiddleston, but your scenes with Chiwetel, I think, are really poignant and sweet and very moving. Talk about working with him as a scene partner and being a part of this bigger ensemble.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, look, I have a very sort of like very limited role. I come in for a second and leave. I'm like this little voice in the middle of the film. But working with Chiwetel is fantastic. I'm a fan of his work and who he is as a guy. Like, we went bowling the weekend before, so we got to know each other a little on the ride over and sort of, but it's such a weird relationship when you're working with someone you don't really know that well and you're only there for a day. So it was great because I think that he saw the work I was trying to do and was a perfect partner for that. Like, wasn't, it's not always the case, but he was present and there for me and ended up, I think both of us are really proud of that little beat in the movie.
It's a little beat, but it's a big beat as far as like how it fits into the rest of the film, which I think is really kind of great. I get what you mean though. There's a lot of those little like scenes. It seems like y'all pop in there for a second, but no matter what, you're part of the Stephen King pantheon from now on, and you will always be able to say that. So do you have a favorite Stephen King adaptation or performance?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, my favorite adaptation is probably Shawshank. I just showed my 16-year-old kid that movie about 6 months ago with his best friend. I was like, "You guys want to see a movie? Sit down." And so it blew them away and sort of had that. I had the same experience when I saw it the first time. And then Stand By Me. I mean, I remember being a kid, buying that LP and like listening to all those old songs that were throughout Stand By Me. But that to me, was the first, and I don't think I really equated that at the time with Stephen King. But for me, my introduction to Stephen King came through books. My mom's a voracious reader, and so I was taught to read a lot, and that was my joy for a long time. And so Christine was actually the first book I ever read for pleasure. Like my mom, we had a standing order that any bookstore we ever go to, I could get a book. And at some point, she's like, "You should read this book," and she gave me, went from Encyclopedia Brown to Stephen King.
Wow. Well, that's a jump. That's a jump.
Yeah.
Also, though, I love that you picked the two that are part of different seasons, Shawshank and Stand By Me, The Body or whatever. I love that those are like act technically in the same book because they're like this where it's a novella.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Curious for you, did you have any familiarity with the novella? Was sort of Mike, was the first one to sort of tell you about it?
No, in fact, the first time he's like, "Do you know this novella?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, don't read it. Just read the script and then go back and read it later." And so, yeah, so I did exactly as I was instructed. Yeah, but I think it's a pretty incredible adaptation of that novella. I think he does Stephen King really well.
I would say that he kind of, I think, has been obsessing about it for so long that that's going to be a huge reason why he kind of wanted to do it. You don't have one of these, but he's kind of known for his monologues.
Sure.
And I'm just curious, did you guys figure out kind of how to approach that? Because you do have a little bit of a...
It's a pretty good I mean,
yeah.
Chiwetel says a couple things here and there, but it really is a rambling little monologue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was terrified. I'm actually going off to do Carrie with him. Premieres on Monday. We travel Tuesday to go to work. So I have a couple of those monologues coming up, and I've got my head. My script is right there, and when we're done, I will literally pick it up and start working on it again. It's that thing where, you can't cram it. It's got to sort of get in there over time and marinate. So I'm excited to be digging in on that.
Oh, I love that too. Well, what else? Can you tell us anything else since you said it?
Not a single thing. No, I mean, look, it's the adaptation of Carrie. We're doing a 8-part series of Carrie and for Amazon, and I think he found a really great way to tell a new way to tell that story. So I think it's gonna be great, and people are gonna love it.
Okay. Well, then you'll probably not say anything about this, but you didn't get to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's at all.
No, I
The
didn't.
like way that happened, and you were
Yeah.
like, I know, maybe like pent up about that. So you got nothing but air and opportunity here if you want to
Oh,
talk about
that's good. Yeah, yeah.
the sequel.
Well, the first time the movie, what you're referring to, the first time the movie came out, we were on a strike.
Yeah.
SAG-AFTRA was on strike, so we were unable to sort of promote it.
And then you couldn't talk about what you were really doing either. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean, was it it was announced that I was William Afton.
I don't think people knew like that. Not until afterwards, kind of like
Yeah.
what it was going to happen. But
Well, for
yeah.
people that don't know, the movie Five Nights at Freddy's came out without any support from any of the stars. It made $300 million worldwide. It's a big hit, and we're continuing. We just finished the second movie. Second movie's gonna be fantastic. I think that a lot of things in the first movie, I think, I think Scott and Emma both really listen to the fans and are trying to deliver an even more fan-centric experience, and I think they pulled it off.
So now you're a part of the Five Freddy's fandom. Have you felt that a little bit? You've already done some pretty iconic things.
I
feel
went
like
from a 2 hour line or 3 hour line at a convention to an 8 hour line overnight. So there's no doubt that that is like not only felt and appreciated and loved, but the weight of that playing that character is unlike anything else because there's an expectation, there's a relationship with the fans that's not like any other movie. I mean, I think that Star Wars, like somebody coming into the Star Wars universe will have that same experience. Like there's weight to being in that universe. But I like it. I relish that kind of, I think it's a privilege to hold space with fans for the things they love the most. So I'm up for it.
The world, Chuck. Everything you've ever loved. Everything you see. That world will get bigger and brighter.
obviously you're very familiar with Mike Flanagan's work. So has this been something he's maybe been muttering and saying that he's been wanting to get done for a while? When did he tell you about this and how much he wanted to make it?
Well, when we were home during the lockdown of the pandemic, he got a chance to read the short story. And we had a long day locked in. His parents were living with us and his sibling. And we had a 6-month-old and a 1.5-year-old. And those days, I think everyone remembers how long those days were.
Yeah.
And we were in bed and we were reading this book for the first time. And he was reading it and I was reading something else. And he got to the end of the short story and he closed the book. And he turned to me and he is crying. And at that time, like, people cried for a lot of reasons. And I asked him, what? And he was like, I just read the most beautiful movie I'll never get to make.
Well, he was wrong.
He was wrong.
Oh, I'm curious. What did you say to him after that then?
I said, let me read it. And then took it out of his hands. And I read the short story and I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. And then I think I said, because at that time he had a relationship with Stephen King because of previous work, I was like, you should email Steve. You should ask him. Like, what's going to hurt if you ask him?
I love that. Oh, I love that. And I love that he did, because now we're sitting on the other side of it and Steven's calling it his like favorite adaptation. So what are you going to do? Right.
Forever. I don't know.
This is something, again, too, I just have to kind of be curious about the dynamic. And I don't want to get into y'all's relationship, but I'm a student of his filmography and now yours. And it seems to me, if there's a woman in the movie who's going to be hot, smarter than everybody else in the room, and like giving the great vibes.
It better be me, you're going to say, because I just did the whole hair toss. So
yes, it is you. And I'm just curious, do you know at this point that it's yours? When does he tell you? I think that's got to be such a weird thing with the actor / husband / director relationship.
It's an interesting question because I don't think of any of my characters as being the hottest or the smartest. I think of them being like, I think of Theo Crane as being deeply traumatized and trying to get through a day. I think of Aaron Green as being exceedingly lonely and just wanting to get out.
You're sexy.
I appreciate
differ. You're sexy than these movies meant to do.
I don't know. I mean, I guess Theo had a sexuality about her, but I appreciate your point of view. I don't mean to take a sharp left. But what I will say is that I almost never ask for a part. I know that he will put me where he needs me. And then I guess, bring my inherent awesomeness and then we see what happens. No, but like when he gives me a part, I try to play these people as real as possible. And I think it's very flattering that you think that they are both smart and sexy.
I think the internet will have my way with it. I don't know, man. I always do. I feel like, not saying that they're always like the ultimate, but yeah, I just don't think he would put you in, like, even in this very quiet, very sort of like moving movie, she's still kind of the object of affection. So I stand by what I say.
All right. And who am I to say no? The audience gets to have their own experience.
Exactly. One thing that you definitely have experience with and have to at this point is how to navigate a Mike Flanagan monologue. He's become kind of known for them now, and they're always just so, I think, intricate, but also moving. So do you have advice on how to approach it? How did you, and you have another one in this one.
Yeah. From when I was training as an actor, I did so much Shakespeare, and Shakespeare also loved a monologue, loved a monologue. And what I would say to any actor who asks me about monologue is that just don't know what you're going to say next. Because there is a draw of the song to a monologue where you start to get into a rhythm and it feels good as a performer to be like, but that's not it. That's going to kill the performance. And so you have to figure out what you're going to say as you're saying it, like a person does. And that to me is the difference between a well-performed monologue and a train of thought that you say on camera.
I will say, obviously, there's proof is in the pudding, because the scene that you have in this one, the multitudes, it's like an allegory for the entire piece. It's an allegory for what you're trying to get the actor to understand in the scene. Everything is there. Do you know that when you're reading the script? How does Mike sort of set up that day? Because after the movie is done, you may know, like, oh, this is so pivotal to like this 3-part arc that we're watching. But I don't know. Was it set up that way? When did you kind of piece together how important it was, and how did you approach it?
So Miss Richards is a triple tap, right? So she is the most influential teacher in Chuck's life, but she also should be the most influential teacher in the audience's life as well. So she needs to remind you of your favorite teacher who changed your life. But I also need to teach you something that is important about this movie, which sort of reveals the heart of this movie. And then on top of that, she's also a person who's trying to take care of the child in front of her. Oh. And so, and I knew all of that going in, because when Mike came to me with Miss Richards, he was like, look, this one, you got to nail it. Like, this is, you can't, we don't have a lot of time. So you're going to have maybe 2 takes at this. And so we got to figure this out right away, because it's a needle to thread when you're trying to explain something so that you're not whacking the audience across the face with it. So it's not condescending, hopefully. Yeah. But it needs to be clear enough that people understand. And so it was quite a difficult piece of performance, because you have no understanding of who Miss Richards is before this or after this. So I have to bring a fully developed person in who is going to teach you something, but is also in the scene. And so it was a triple toe loop.
Well, you nailed it. And now that you put it to like that, there's multitudes within the multitudes.
But I was also, as you say, the smartest and the hottest and the coolest and the funnest. No, God, I forget the written word. Don't print that. The written word just loses all nuance.
I love this. This is so cute, because it's just proving my point, because this is adorable. Before we get out of here, though, I've been asking everyone sort of like their favorite Stephen King movie performance. I'm actually going to ask you something where I don't even know if you would answer it, but I'd be curious. What's your favorite Mike Flanagan project? Like that one might be like, I don't know. I don't want to cause strife either, because it might be like picking between.
You're going to love this answer, which is Absentia.
Is that the only one you're not in? Or something.
But it's not because of that, but it is because it's when I was introduced to him. And it is all of the potential. It's like right before the Big Bang, and all of the potential of Mike Flanagan is in this tiny movie he made and edited while he was working 2 other jobs, and like wrote himself and shot in his own apartment and cast like everybody in his life. And it was before any of it was real. It was before he knew who he could be. And I love it. Multitudes.
Oh, I dig it. That's a good answer. But also, this is why you don't clock what I'm saying, because you, of course, picked the one.
Okay, the answer, then the other one is Hush. Hush is my favorite.
I love Hush, too. I have to say. You're great in it. It's good to see you again. But what was it about this particular project that made you say, okay, I think I'm back?
Mike Flanagan.
Okay, tell me about it.
I am a huge fan of Mike's. My whole family has been a huge Mike Flanagan fan. And then we met socially, and he's wonderful. And he just, he said, well, come on, why don't you work anymore? And I said, lots of reasons. And he said, well, what if I asked you to do something? And I said, Mike, for you, anything.
Wow. Oh, I do love that he was the one that sort of Michael Corleoned you back in. I dig it.
Yeah, he did.
And then he does Michael Corleone you back in, but does he tell you that you're sort of the heartbeat of this entire piece? And there's a 20-second moment of you tapping a spoon on a pot that's going to be very significant, and you got to pull this off. Like, so when did he tell you about what the role was going to entail and what it meant to the story?
Well, he told me about the story and what it meant to him first, and I think he was nervous because he thought I would be worried about playing a grandma, which I was like, yes, this is awesome to play a grandma. But then, he did. He told me why it was important, and I felt very daunted. But and can I tell you, I have really bad drumming skills, and that was really hard for me. That was like I was like, oh, Mike, I'm so sorry. You're just gonna have to cut around my tapping, because I had to do it. It had to be because Tom had done it, and so it had to kind of mimic that. And it was so embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed about I think the dancing came off really well, but honestly, everyone was like, I can't believe she can't do that.
Oh my God, no. Well, I would not say it's movie magic. I think you're being too hard on yourself.
Mike's a really good editor.
Also, can I just go ahead and say, I think there needs to be an investigation, and this is me really thinking off the cuff, but every movie that you dance in now is a certified banger. Ferris Bueller, Legend, this, Sis. I'm thinking I'm catching a pattern here.
Okay, I see. I forget that, but it's true. That's true. And I really do. And honestly, I really do like to dance. I've just been to this ginormous family wedding. I danced all night. All night. You cannot get me. It is a thing. It is a thing.
One of the other things that you got to do in this is you get to have some incredible scene partners between Benjamin and Mark Hamill. And I think that's also kind of an interesting dynamic, to be working with a child actor and then somebody like Mark, who's got this Hollywood legacy that literally goes to the stars and back. So talk about having those two as your main scene partners through this.
First of all, I started when I was about Benjamin's age, maybe a little older, but I was really
that's right. Yeah.
So I really, for me to go from all, I was always the youngest person on the set for the longest time, and now to be playing the grandma, it was really wonderful. It was wonderful. It felt like a very healing and cyclical, wonderful thing for me. And I grew up in the 70s, so I got to marry Luke Skywalker. Come on.
Actually, facts. Yeah, that is so a moment. Cool. That is a moment for a girl that probably saw Star Wars in that very pivotal time of
Absolutely. It was. I was that age, so
I dig that so much. Actually,
it's come true.
One of the other things that I think is really sort of great about this one is you're now part of the Stephen King sort of pantheon. And as someone, you got to see some of the greatest ones right in your adolescence, between The Shining and also Shawshank. There's just tons of these films that are classics that are part of Stephen King. Do you have a favorite Stephen King adaptation?
I think Stand By Me is my favorite, although I have to say Shawshank is pretty much... And then, my husband directed a short of Nightmares and Dreamscapes.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes. And I really like that. So
yeah. Tell me about the black dress from Legend, because I have been obsessed with that dress since I saw it. And
that dress,
the music. And I know there's different choices on the music, but I don't know which score you love the best. But in my opinion, there's only Tangerine Dream, and we will just live in another world if it's not. But you tell me, just give me that.
Yes, but listen, that dress was so that dress was hard. That thing, those things, I would catch on everything. I was always catching everything, and I had these rods went down into the dress, into these channels into the dress, and like it was really awkward. But I mean, it was fine. Like once I was dancing, you know, but like walking around the set, can you imagine? I was like bonking into everybody, catching on everybody. But yeah, that was really that was quite a dress. That was
and another great, and as I said, another great dance performance. Is there something to be said for like in this film? When did you know you nailed those dance sequences? Like when did you guys know you had it, and how much of that was scripted and how much was it just free flowing?
That was not free flowing. Mandy Moore is an amazing choreographer, and we worked really hard for days and days and days, and it was so fun. But no, it was we worked really hard on that. We learned every different dance.
Yeah, you did which one was the hardest? Which was the easiest? Real quick.
The swing, the swing, the Charleston actually, and it was going between, like, because she would just be calling them out. So she'd say, okay, polka, okay, now waltz, okay, now cha-cha. And we would just, switch it up. It was so much fun though. It was great.
Some math that's called statistics or probability, it can tell you stuff about your future. It could tell you, for example, you're more likely to be drafted by a major league sports team than to make a real living as a dancer.
You started your career with Mike going all the way back to Oculus. Did he know you could dance? Did he just...
He had no idea, but that's no fault of his own because dance is so sacred to me. So I've sort of kept it away from and just recently over COVID, I was working on some choreography of my own. And that's when I really posted on social media and like decided to share it. But to share it in a film and to have these two loves of my life, acting and dance, come together in this way, and to be able to show Mike, someone who's known me for most of my life now, to show him this side of me and act with him again, it was a gift.
Well, talk about that as, one of his early collaborators. I mean, besides maybe his wife, who's been in everything that he's done, but you've gotten to see his evolution across several films. I'm curious, what was different coming to him after a lot of very recent success compared to what was exactly the same from that first film?
Mike has this way of working with actors and with people, just a mutual respect and desire to collaborate. I think on every set I've encountered that. And then this project specifically, though, I did notice this was precious to him in a way that I think dance was precious to me. And he handled it with such care. And not to say that he didn't with Oculus or Ouija, he was very meticulous, but with this, he was careful because it's a part of his heart. And it speaks to, it's a testament to, his soul and his legacy that he wants to leave behind for his kids. And it's special and is worthy of being careful with.
I love that. Well, you can tell that dedication in your big scene, which is this dance sequence with yourself and another actor drumming, and of course, Mr. Tom Hiddleston. Break down for us a little bit about how you rehearsed for that, how you got ready for that, because that is not just a huge sequence in the sense of like, hey, this needs to be, good, but like in the course of the film, you could honestly say if that doesn't work, there's a whole bunch of other things that are not going to work subsequently. So yeah, talk about prepping for it and what was it like shooting on the day?
Well, what you just said, if the dance doesn't work, then the movie is just really sad. And it's end of the world, sickness, just death. And then this moment, this breath of life that is the second act. So there was a little bit of pressure, I guess, with the truncated rehearsal time and Tom rehearsing in London. I was rehearsing in LA. And we didn't start rehearsing together until 2 weeks prior to shooting it. Wow. So, in terms of just having dance in my body, I've been training my whole life and I love dance. But when it comes to dancing with someone and following someone's lead, that's a whole other art form. So Tom really became my Fred and I became his Ginger. And his lead was a pleasure to follow just because we do share this mutual love of dance, and we're not professional dancers, but there's just this love and passion that's there for it.
Oh, I dig that. I mean, you would never, well, you are professional. You got paid to dance in a movie. That's totally professional.
Okay, you know what? I'll accept. I'll embrace that. I'm a professional dancer.
Dig it. The other thing I definitely wanted to kind of talk to you about is there's a lot, I would say, that goes into the technical aspect of it, but was it silent on the day? Like, you didn't even have music, right? Not even a click track? Like,
who was there? Taylor was playing the drums every single take, and for almost every
wow.
No, I can't remember one rehearsal where once the song was drilled in, she was present with her drums for every rehearsal that I remember.
Oh my gosh, that's absolutely great. So yeah, so you got the real, okay, that's very rare in movie productions where they actually kind of do it. They're usually trying to prevent that because of the whole sound thing, but that's great.
So important for this scene in particular because it needed to feel alive and spontaneous. And if we were just dancing to a click track, I don't know if we would have had that.
I dig that. No, it's very true. It's interesting too because it's the sequence within the film, but the film itself is really told sort of non-linearly, and it's something that gets referenced later and all of that. When you were reading the script, did you know like this is how it's going to be? Did you have any experience with the Novelia? Did you have any experience with sort of like where this meant as far as what it meant to Mike? Like, how did you learn about the source material and then the adaptation and what y'all were going to be doing?
Well, I was living in New York at the time, and I had flied back to LA, or flown, I don't know. Flown.
Flew. Yep.
Oh, I flew. God, thank you. These precedent, sometimes my brain just stops working at short circuits, but I flew back to LA and I had lunch with Mike, and I hadn't seen him for several years. And I was just talking to him about where I'm at in my career, and we were catching up. He's like, Basso, do you dance? And I was like, Mike, I can't believe you've known me for this long and it's never come up. Yes. And he's like, I might have a role for you in my next movie, blah, blah, blah. And then, the strike happened, and I just figured, I'm not going to be dancing with Tom Hiddleston in London. That's just not going to happen. Yeah. And then after the strike ended and production started to pick back up again, I was still in this mindset of like, oh, they probably found somebody else. It's not mine yet. It's not mine. And then when we actually started training for it, and then when it started to come alive, that's when I really so sorry, my cats are wrestling. Do you
No, you're fine. I can't even hear them. You're great. You're great.
Yeah, then it finally started to come alive. And then, reading the script and reading If It Bleeds, it's just, reading Life of Chuck in the whole context of If It Bleeds, it's like, it just speaks to the spirit of the film. Going from reading the source material to having it come alive, there was just like sort of a seamless transition because the heart of it was so tangible on the page, in Stephen King's novella, and then also in Mike's script. I had very few questions or doubts. It was just like, oh, this is what it is. Anybody could be Janice, and I can be Janice, and I learned to just like trust that I didn't have anything to prove. It was just about being Janice.
Love that. The one great thing about it is you'll forever be a part of the pantheon of Stephen King sort of like iconic performances, because everything that gets produced that is his words, it seems like it ends up that way. Do you have a favorite Stephen King movie adaptation? One of the films that has had, and he has a lot. People forget. Stand By Me is a Stephen King adaptation.
I love Green Mile. That's one of my favorites.
That's a good one.
And Shawshank Redemption is it's a perfect movie, but I think Green Mile is one of my favorites just because it has a similar spirit to where Shawshank Redemption, it is about a spirit of freedom. I think Green Mile has that like just life, and then Life of Chuck is joy. And that I like that.
Love it. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations again.
Thank you, Jacqueline.